In a world marked, critics have frequently suggested that I tend to have an unrealistic perspective, often accusing me of being aloof or disconnected from the harsh realities of life. This sentiment has sometimes been expressed in humorously derogatory terms, implying that my thoughts might be dwelling in some clouded or unpleasant place. Ironically, just as these critiques were echoing in my mind, I found myself quite literally enveloped in the serene ambience of a cloud forest, nestled in the warmth of a volcanic hot spring. It was in this tranquil setting that I received the news of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation, which he announced last Monday. This moment marked a significant juncture in Canadian politics, and it was notable for me not only because of the event itself, but also because it was the first major political development in recent Canadian history that I did not cover firsthand. For this reason, I felt a peculiar sense of relief rather than disappointment about not being a part of the media frenzy that often surrounds such announcements. Trudeau's departure from politics may have stirred a cacophony of reactions among the public and political analysts alike, but I would argue that it is essential to take a step back and reflect on the broader implications of his tenure. As Trudeau prepares to leave the political stage, it is worth considering how history might ultimately evaluate his leadership. There is a strong possibility that, with the passage of time, historians and future generations will look back on Trudeau's time in office with a degree of leniency, much like how they have treated former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. While Mulroney faced considerable criticism during his time in power, he has since been reappraised in more favorable terms by scholars and commentators. This potential for a kinder historical judgment is something I believe will also apply to Trudeau, despite the controversies that have surrounded him. Given my unique position as Trudeau's first biographer and my experience covering his career since his election in 2008, I feel a certain obligation to share my insights and reflections on his political journey. My understanding of Trudeau's time in office has been shaped significantly by my research and interviews conducted while writing my 2019 book, Trudeau: The Education of a Prime Minister. In this work, I endeavored to present a nuanced portrait of Trudeau, capturing both his accomplishments and his shortcomings. In the early reviews of my book, some critics suggested that my assessments of Trudeau were overly harsh, especially as many of my contemporaries in the media were still inclined to grant him the benefit of the doubt. However, I stand by the core evaluations I made in the book. The political landscape is often rife with polarized opinions, and leaders frequently elicit passionate responses from supporters and detractors alike. The challenge lies in discerning the long-term impact of their policies and the legacy they leave behind. To understand Trudeau's tenure, it's essential to acknowledge the context in which he rose to power. Elected in 2015, Trudeau entered office amidst a backdrop of political disillusionment and a desire for change. His campaign promised a more open and inclusive government, a stark contrast to the previous Conservative administration led by Stephen Harper. Trudeau's emphasis on progressive values, climate action, and social justice resonated with a significant segment of the Canadian electorate, leading to a decisive victory for his Liberal Party. However, Trudeau's leadership has not been without its challenges. The initial optimism surrounding his administration began to wane as various controversies emerged. High-profile incidents, such as the SNC-Lavalin affair, raised questions about his commitment to ethical governance and accountability. Critics argued that his handling of the situation undermined the very principles he had championed during his campaign. Moreover, Trudeau's approach to Indigenous issues has been met with both praise and criticism. While he made ambitious promises to advance reconciliation and address historical injustices, many Indigenous leaders and activists have expressed frustration over the slow pace of change. The gap between Trudeau's rhetoric and the tangible outcomes has led to disillusionment among those who had once hoped for meaningful progress. In addition to domestic challenges, Trudeau's foreign policy decisions have also sparked debate. His government's response to global issues such as climate change, trade negotiations, and international relations has faced scrutiny. Critics have pointed to inconsistencies in his approach, suggesting that his administration sometimes struggles to balance idealism with pragmatic considerations. As I reflect on Trudeau's time in office, I am reminded of the complexity of political leadership. It is easy to reduce a leader's legacy to a series of successes or failures, but the reality is often far more intricate. Trudeau's journey has been characterized by a mix of ambition, missteps, and moments of genuine progress. The role of the media in shaping public perception of political figures cannot be overstated. Throughout Trudeau's tenure, various narratives have emerged, some portraying him as a visionary leader and others as a flawed politician. The media's coverage often oscillates between these extremes, contributing to the polarized views that characterize contemporary politics. In considering Trudeau's legacy, it is crucial to explore the broader implications of his policies and decisions. What will his governance style mean for future leaders? How will his administration influence the trajectory of Canadian politics in the years to come? One important aspect of Trudeau's leadership has been his commitment to diversity and inclusion. His cabinet, which featured an unprecedented number of women and representatives from various cultural backgrounds, was hailed as a significant step forward. This emphasis on diversity has contributed to a more representative government, reflecting the multicultural fabric of Canada. However, the challenge remains to translate this representation into meaningful change for marginalized communities. Another notable element of Trudeau's legacy is the emphasis on climate action. His government made significant commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and invest in renewable energy. This focus on environmental sustainability has resonated with younger voters and those concerned about the future of the planet. Yet, critics argue that the pace of change has not matched the urgency of the climate crisis, and there remains a disconnect between rhetoric and action. As we look to the future, it is essential to engage in an honest evaluation of Trudeau's leadership. This involves acknowledging both the achievements and the shortcomings of his administration. History has a way of reassessing political figures, often revealing the complexities that were overlooked in the heat of the moment. In conclusion, Trudeau's resignation marks the end of a significant chapter in Canadian politics. While his time in office has been marked by both triumphs and controversies, it is essential to adopt a balanced perspective when evaluating his legacy. As someone who has followed his career closely, I believe that the ultimate judgment of Trudeau's leadership will be shaped by the lens of history, allowing for a more comprehensive understanding of his impact on Canada and its political landscape. Ultimately, the reflections I have shared here are not merely about Trudeau as an individual, but about the broader nature of political leadership and the lessons that can be drawn from his experience. In politics, as in life, the complexities of human behavior and decision-making often defy simple categorization. As we navigate our way through an ever-evolving political landscape, it is essential to approach these discussions with nuance, empathy, and a commitment to understanding the multifaceted nature of leadership.